Can't make it. Mom texted about graduation. Hours later, Instagram family dinner. Sister's Walmart promotion. I left alone. Stop rent. I paid for 4 years and texted. Let her pay it. By morning, 94 missed calls. The text came through at 9:47 a.m., just over 2 hours before I was supposed to walk across that stage. Sweetie, so sorry, but we can't make it today. Your dad's back is acting up again and the drive is just too much. We'll celebrate another time. Love you. I stared at my phone in the cramped bathroom of my apartment, already wearing the black slacks and white blouse that would go under my graduation gown. My hands started shaking before my brain fully processed what I was reading. The University of Michigan's College of Engineering commencement ceremony started at noon. They'd known about this date for 4 years. 4 years. My roommate Jessica knocked on the door. Darla, you okay in there? We need to leave in 20 minutes if we want decent seats for our families. I couldn't answer right away. My throat had closed up in that horrible way it does right before you start crying when your body knows before your mind catches up that something has broken inside you. I splashed cold water on my face and opened the door. My parents aren't coming, I said flatly. Jessica's face fell. What, Darla, no? What happened? I showed her the text. She read it twice, then looked at me with this mixture of pity and anger that made everything worse. Your dad's back. Wasn't he posting about going fishing last weekend? He had been. I'd seen the photos on Facebook. Him holding up a huge bass, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Standing in a boat for 6 hours, no problem. Driving 3 hours to watch his daughter graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering. Somehow impossible. Apparently maybe something happened between then and now. I heard myself saying, already making excuses for them. Already doing what I'd done my entire life. Smoothing over their rough edges, filling in the gaps they left behind. Jessica grabbed my shoulders. Stop. Just stop. You've worked your ass off for this degree. You're graduating with a 3.97 GPA. You already have a job lined up at Ford making more money than most people twice your age. This is your day, Darla. With or without them. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing didn't make the empty seats any less empty. The ceremony was beautiful. I barely remember it. I walked across the stage when they called my name, shook the dean's hand, accepted my diploma, smiled for the photographer. The whole time I kept glancing at the section where I'd reserved 4 seats. Mom, Dad, my sister Allison, and my grandmother, all empty. Jessica's family was there in the next section over, and her mom kept giving me these encouraging smiles that made me want to cry and scream at the same time. After the ceremony, families flooded onto the lawn for photos. Jessica's parents insisted on taking pictures with me, treating me like I was their second daughter. Mr. Patterson put his arm around my shoulders for a photo and said, "Your parents are missing out on one hell of a kid." I lost it then, just for a minute, tears streaming down my face while wearing that stupid square hat. By 6:00 p.m., I was back in my apartment, still in my graduation outfit, eating Chinese takeout straight from the container. Jessica had gone to dinner with her family. She'd invited me along, but I couldn't handle being the charity case anymore today. I'd used up my quota of pity. That's when I made the mistake of opening Instagram. The first post in my feed was from my mom's account, posted 45 minutes ago. A photo of my entire family crammed into a booth at Rossi's Italian restaurant in our hometown of Grand Rapids. Mom, Dad, Allison, Grandma Joyce, Uncle Dennis, Aunt Carol, and my 2 younger cousins. Everyone smiling, everyone dressed up nice. The caption read, "Family dinner celebrating our Alley girl. So proud of our daughter for her big promotion to assistant manager at Walmart. #proudmom, #family first." I read it 3 times, then I looked at the timestamp. They posted it at 5:23 p.m. The photo showed full plates of food in front of everyone. Rossi's is 20 minutes from their house, which means they'd probably gotten there around 5:00, maybe earlier. My graduation ceremony ended at 2:30 p.m. Grand Rapids, is a 3-hour drive from Ann Arbor. They could have made it to at least part of my ceremony and still gotten to dinner on time. But looking at those full plates and how relaxed everyone looked, I realized they probably left Grand Rapids around 4:30 to make their reservation. They never even considered coming. They absolutely could have made it. My dad's back wasn't the problem. The 3-hour drive wasn't the problem. I was the problem. Or more accurately, I wasn't enough of a priority to beat anything other than an inconvenience. Allison had gotten a promotion from regular employee to assistant manager at Walmart. She was 24, still lived at home, had dropped out of community college after 1 semester, and spent most of her time posting TikToks about her boyfriend drama. And she got a family dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. I'd spent 4 years working my ass off taking extra courses every semester, working 2 part-time jobs to cover expenses, graduating with the highest honors from one of the best engineering programs in the country. And I got a text message at 9:47 a.m. Something cold settled into my chest as I sat there on my worn-out couch surrounded by moving boxes because my lease was up in a week and I was relocating to Dearborn for my job at Ford. I opened my banking app and navigated to my automatic payments. There it was. The monthly transfer I'd set up during my freshman year. $850 sent on the first of every month to my parents' account. Rent money, they called it. My contribution to the family, since I was technically still using their address for some of my mail and keeping a few boxes of childhood stuff in their basement. Except I'd been paying it for 4 years. 12 months times 4 years times $850. $40,800. I paid them over $40,000 while working 2 jobs and taking a full course load. Money I could have used for better housing or to graduate without the $23,000 in student loans I was carrying or to save for my future. And they couldn't drive 3 hours to watch me walk across the stage, but they could throw a party for Allison's Walmart promotion. My finger hovered over the cancel automatic payment button. 4 years of coming home for Thanksgiving and hearing about how tough they had it. 4 years of listening to Dad complain about his bills while drinking $8 craft beers. 4 years of Mom posting Facebook statuses about how expensive everything was, followed by photos of her weekend shopping trips to Target. 4 years of Allison rolling her eyes whenever I tried to talk about school, saying college was just a piece of paper and she was doing fine without it. Fine without it while living rent-free in their house. Fine without it while I sent them nearly $1,000 every month. I pressed the button. Then I went into my contacts and pulled up the family group chat, the one they named the Anderson crew with way too many emojis. I typed, "Just so you know, I've canceled the monthly payment. Since Allison got such a great promotion, she can start contributing to the household expenses. Congrats to her." I hit send before I could second guess myself. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. I woke up at 7:15 a.m. to my phone buzzing so violently it had fallen off my nightstand. I picked it up and just stared at the screen. 94 missed calls, 67 text messages, 15 voicemails, all from my parents, a few from Allison, 2 from my grandmother, even one from Uncle Dennis, who I'd spoken to maybe 3 times in my entire life. My hands weren't shaking anymore. That cold feeling from last night had settled in permanently like ice in my veins. I made coffee, sat down at my kitchen table, and started reading. The text from my mom started out concerned around midnight. "Honey, what do you mean, call me?" Then confused at 1:30 a.m., "Darla, your father and I don't understand. What's wrong?" By 3:00 a.m., they turned angry. "This is completely unacceptable. You made a commitment. Call us immediately." And by 6:00 a.m., they were desperate. "Darla, please. The mortgage payment is due in 4 days, and we've already budgeted everything around your contribution. You can't just stop without warning." The mortgage payment. For 4 years, they told me I was paying rent, contributing to household expenses, doing my part. I'd been paying their mortgage. I opened my laptop and started typing an email because this was going to be too long for a text message. "Mom and Dad, I'm sorry you're upset about the canceled payment. I can explain my decision. Yesterday was my college graduation. I completed a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Michigan with a 3.97 GPA summa, cum laude honors, and a job offer already in place. You knew about this ceremony for 4 years. The date was set, the tickets were reserved, and I reminded you about it multiple times over the past few months. At 9:47 a.m. yesterday morning, you texted to say you couldn't attend because Dad's back was acting up and the drive was too much. At 5:23 p.m. yesterday evening, Mom posted a photo on Instagram of the entire family at Rossi's Italian restaurant. Everyone was there. You, Dad, Allison, Grandma, Uncle Dennis, Aunt Carol, and the cousins. The caption celebrated Allison's promotion to assistant manager at Walmart. The math is simple. My graduation ceremony ended at 2:30 p.m. You were at dinner by 5:00 p.m. You had time to attend my graduation and still make it to Allison's celebration. You chose not to. For the past 4 years, I've sent you $850 every month. You called it rent and household expenses. That's $40,800 total. I worked 2 jobs throughout college to afford this, while also paying for my own food, textbooks, transportation, and other expenses. I did this because you told me it was important to contribute to the family. Meanwhile, Allison has lived at home, rent-free. She dropped out of college after one semester, works part-time at Walmart, and gets a family dinner at the nicest restaurant in town for a promotion to assistant manager. I graduate with highest honors from a top engineering program and get a text message cancellation 3 hours before the ceremony. I'm not angry about the money. I'm angry about what it represents. You've made it crystal clear where your priorities are, and I'm done pretending I don't see it. Allison is still living at home. If you need $850 a month, she can start paying it. She has a promotion now, after all. The sky's the limit, right? I'm moving to Dearborn next week for my job. I'll come by the house to pick up my remaining belongings on Wednesday afternoon. Please have them ready. Darla. I sent the email at 7:43 a.m., and then I did something I'd never done before in my entire life. I blocked my parents' numbers, not permanently, just for a few days. I needed space to breathe without the constant buzzing of incoming guilt trips. The next 72 hours were chaos from what I could piece together later. My grandmother called Jessica, who called me from her number. Apparently, my mom had shown up at Grandma Joyce's house in tears, saying I'd abandoned the family and left them in financial ruin. My dad had gone to Uncle Dennis looking for a loan to cover their mortgage payment. Allison had posted a fake TikTok about fake people who think they're better than everyone else just because they have a degree. Jessica showed me that one. I watched Allison pout at the camera while scrolling through her phone, lip-syncing to some song about betrayal. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. She's really comparing herself to you, Jessica said, incredulous. You paid your way through school while sending them money every month. She lives at home for free and complains when the gravy train stops. Wednesday arrived. I drove to Grand Rapids with Jessica, who'd insisted on coming along for moral support, which we both knew meant in case things got ugly. We pulled up to my childhood home at 2 p.m. sharp. My dad's truck was in the driveway. So was Allison's car and my mom's SUV, and another car I didn't recognize. Looks like they called in reinforcements, Jessica muttered. The front door opened before I even got out of the car. My mom stood there and she looked terrible. Her eyes were red and puffy. Her hair was in a messy bun and she was wearing sweatpants, which was basically her equivalent of showing up naked. My mother never appeared in public in anything less than full makeup and coordinated outfits. Darla, she started, her voice cracking. I held up a hand. I'm just here for my things. I have boxes in the car. We need to talk about this. Please, honey, just come inside for 5 minutes. I looked past her into the living room. My dad sat on the couch, arms crossed, looking furious. Allison was there too, scrolling through her phone like this was all a massive inconvenience to her personally. And sitting in my dad's recliner was Pastor Mike from the church my parents attended sporadically whenever they wanted to look respectable. You called your pastor? I couldn't keep the disbelief out of my voice. We thought a mediator might help, Mom said. A mediator for what I'm picking up my stuff and leaving. There's nothing to mediate. I pushed Pastor into the house. Pastor Mike stood up, all 6'4" of him, with his practiced sympathetic smile. Darla, I'm glad you're here. Your parents are very concerned about their mortgage payment. I know. His smile faltered. That's not fair. They're concerned about you, about this family. Families go through rough patches, but with faith and communication. Did they tell you I graduated on Saturday? I interrupted. He blinked. I'm sorry. My college graduation, 4 years of engineering school. Did they mention that? Pastor Mike looked at my parents. My mom had tears streaming down her face now. My dad was staring at the floor. They said there was some confusion about the date, Pastor Mike said carefully. There was no confusion. They told me they couldn't come. Then they took the whole family out to dinner to celebrate Allison's promotion at Walmart instead. I turned to my sister. Congrats on that, by the way. Assistant manager. That's really something. Allison finally looked up from her phone. You're such a bitch. You know that. You've always thought you were better than me. Mom gasped. No, Mom. She has. She walks around with her perfect grades and her perfect job, making the rest of us feel like garbage. So she went to college. Big deal. Not everyone needs a stupid degree to be successful. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out harsh and bitter. You're right. Not everyone needs a degree. But I worked my ass off for mine while sending our parents almost $1,000 a month. Money I could have used to graduate debt-free. Money I earned working 2 jobs while taking 5 classes a semester, and they couldn't be bothered to drive 3 hours to watch me walk across the stage. Your father's back, Mom started. Was fine enough for him to take everyone to Rossi's, my voice cracked. I hadn't wanted to yell. Hadn't wanted to give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. You posted it on Instagram, Mom. The whole happy family. Everyone dressed up nice. Everyone celebrating Allison. And I was alone in my apartment eating Chinese takeout from the container. The room went quiet. Pastor Mike looked deeply uncomfortable. Dad still wouldn't meet my eyes. It wasn't like that, Mom whispered. We were going to come by this week to celebrate with you properly, but Allison's promotion couldn't wait. It had to be that exact night during my graduation ceremony. The reservation was hard to get, Allison muttered. I stared at her. What? The reservation at Rossi's. They're booked weeks in advance. Mom made it like a month ago. The floor dropped out from under me. A month ago? Allison stopped talking, Dad said sharply. But the damage was done. They'd known. They planned Allison's celebration dinner a month in advance, which meant they'd already decided not to come to my graduation before Dad's back conveniently started acting up. The text message that morning was just the excuse they grabbed for cover. Get out, Dad said, standing up. Get your stuff and get out of my house. Bob Pastor Mike said weakly. Maybe we should all take a breath. No, she comes in here, disrespects her family, throws our private business around, makes her mother cry. I'm done, he pointed at me. You think you're so smart with your fancy degree. You think you're better than us. Fine, you're on your own. Don't come back here expecting anything from us. I felt Jessica's hand on my arm, steadying me. Where are Darla's things? She asked, her voice cold. Mom pointed upstairs. Her old bedroom. I'll help. Don't bother, I said. I know where they are. It took us 20 minutes to pack up the boxes I'd stored in their basement, and the few items from my old room. Yearbooks, photo albums, some clothes I'd left behind, a few trophies from high school robotics competitions. The detritus of a childhood that felt like it belonged to someone else. Now, as we were loading the last box into my car, Allison came outside. She stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself. You're really leaving like this, she called out. I paused with my hand on the car door. Like what? All dramatic, like you're some victim. I could have said a lot of things. I could have listed every time they'd chosen her over me. Every Christmas where her gift pile was twice the size of mine. Every parent-teacher conference they'd missed because she had a volleyball game. Every time I'd heard Darla can handle herself as an excuse for why I didn't need the same attention she got. Instead, I said, take care of yourself, Allison. I hope the assistant manager position works out. I drove away without looking back. The first week in Dearborn was a blur of unpacking boxes and trying to pretend I was fine. My new apartment was a one-bedroom on the third floor of a renovated building near the Ford campus. It had hardwood floors, updated appliances, and large windows that let in natural light. It should have felt like a fresh start. Instead, it felt like a museum of my own failure to matter. I started my job at Ford on a Monday morning, walking into the massive engineering complex with my new employee badge and a knot in my stomach. My supervisor, Karen Mitchell, was a 15-year veteran of the company, with sharp eyes and an even sharper wit. She showed me to my cubicle, introduced me to the team, and gave me my first assignment, reviewing stress analysis reports for a new transmission design. You'll be working with Marcus and Priya, primarily, Karen explained, gesturing to the two engineers in the neighboring cubicles. They'll get you up to speed on our protocols. Any questions, ask. Better to ask now than fix mistakes later. Marcus was a 30-something guy from Detroit, with a University of Michigan class ring that he tapped against his desk when he was thinking. Priya had graduated from MIT and had this intimidating combination of brilliance and confidence that made me feel like a fraud. But they were both patient with me, answering my endless questions about the company's software systems and project workflows. By the third week, I kept my phone face down on my desk. I'd unblocked my parents' numbers after the first few days, but had turned off all notifications. Every time I glanced at the screen during lunch, there were new messages. My mom mostly pleading and apologizing in equal measure. My dad sent exactly 2 texts. You owe us a conversation. This is childish. Allison sent nothing, which somehow hurt more than her usual antagonism. The apartment felt too quiet at night. I'd gotten used to the constant noise of college life. Jessica playing music in the next room, people in the hallway at all hours. Now there was just the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional sound of my upstairs neighbor walking around. I ate frozen dinners and watched Netflix shows I didn't actually pay attention to, just needing the background noise to fill the silence. Jessica called every other day, checking in. How's the fancy engineering job, she'd ask, deliberately keeping things light until I was ready to talk about the heavy stuff. It's good. Everyone's nice. The work is interesting. And how are you actually? That's when I'd usually crack a little. I keep thinking about how many people were at that graduation. Thousands of families, all cheering and taking photos and crying happy tears. And I was just alone, like I didn't matter enough for anyone to show up. Darla, stop. You know that's not true. Your family sucks at showing love, but that doesn't mean you're not worthy of it. She was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are two different things. I'd lie awake at night, replaying the Instagram post over and over in my head. My mom's smile in that photo. How genuinely happy everyone looked. How easy it had been for them to choose Allison over me. By the second week, I'd started to find a rhythm. Wake up at 6, go for a run along the trails near my apartment, shower, eat breakfast while reading the news drive to work. The routine helped. It gave structure to days that otherwise felt unmoored. Priya invited me to lunch in the cafeteria on a Thursday. We sat with Marcus and 2 other engineers from different departments, and the conversation flowed easily. They talked about a Tigers game, complained about a project deadline that had been moved up, debated the best Middle Eastern restaurant in Dearborn. "You settling in okay?" Marcus asked me directly. "Moving to a new city solo can be rough." "Yeah, it's fine. Still getting used to everything." "You should come out with us." "Friday night," Priya suggested. "There's a group of us who usually grab drinks at this bar in Ann Arbor. Nothing fancy, just unwinding after the week." I hesitated. The thought of socializing, of pretending to be normal and adjusted, felt exhausting. But the alternative was another weekend alone in my apartment, and that felt worse. "Sure," I heard myself say. "That sounds good." Friday night, I met them at a bar called the Wooden Spoke near the University of Michigan campus. It was crowded with a mix of students and young professionals, loud music playing over conversations and laughter. Our group claimed a corner table, and I nursed a beer while listening to them trade stories about terrible managers they'd worked for and projects that had gone sideways. "So Darla said one of the engineers, a guy named David, who worked in the electric vehicle division. What made you choose Ford? You must have had other offers coming out of Michigan with your grades." The question caught me off guard. "How did you know about my grades?" He grinned. "Karen mentioned you graduated summa cum laude. That's impressive. We don't get a lot of new hires at that level." "Oh," I felt my face flush. I've always loved cars. My dad used to take me to auto shows when I was a kid, and I'd spend hours looking at how everything fit together. Engineering made sense. It was true. Mostly. My dad had taken me to auto shows back when I was young enough that he still saw me as interesting, before Allison became the center of everything. I remembered being 7 years old, holding his hand while we walked through rows of gleaming vehicles. Him explaining how transmissions worked and why certain engines were more efficient than others. When had that stopped? When had I become the daughter who was fine on her own instead of the daughter worth spending time with? "Earth to Darla," Marcus said, waving a hand in front of my face. "You okay? You spaced out there?" "Sorry, yeah, just thinking." The night continued, and despite my initial reluctance, I found myself relaxing. These people didn't know about my family drama. They didn't know about the missed graduation, or the Instagram post, or the $40,000. To them, I was just Darla, the new engineer, who was good at her job and decent enough company for drinks. Around 11, Priya pulled me aside while the guys were arguing about whose turn it was to buy the next round. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. My stomach tightened. "Okay." "You seem sad," she said gently, "like underneath everything. I recognize it because I was the same way when I first moved here." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I'm not trying to pry. I just wanted you to know that if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm around. No judgment." I felt tears prick at my eyes and blinked them back hard. "Thank you. I appreciate that." She squeezed my arm. "Us women engineers have to stick together, right? There aren't enough of us as it is." On the drive home that night, I cried in my car for 10 minutes before I could pull myself together enough to drive. Not sad tears exactly, more like release. The possibility that I could build something here, friendships and a life that existed separate from the wreckage I'd left behind in Grand Rapids, felt like the first real hope I'd had in weeks. The third week, my phone rang at 2:00 in the morning. I jerked awake, heart pounding, and grabbed it off my nightstand. My grandmother's name lit up the screen. Panic shot through me. Grandma Joyce never called this late unless something was wrong. "Grandma, what happened?" "I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm sorry to wake you. I just needed to talk to you and I couldn't wait until morning." She sounded tired but steady. "Your mother came to see me today. She was a mess, Darla. Crying, barely making sense. She's not handling this well." I sat up in bed, pulling my knees to my chest. "That's not my problem to fix." "I know, I'm not asking you to fix it. I'm just telling you what I saw." Grandma sighed. "She showed me the email you sent them, the one explaining why you stopped the payments, and she finally understands what she did. Really understands it, not just the surface level. She kept saying, 'I missed her graduation,' over and over, like she couldn't believe she'd actually done it." There was a pause. "Your father is a different story. He's angry, defensive, refusing to admit they did anything wrong. He keeps saying you're being dramatic and entitled. That tracked. Dad had never been good at admitting fault. It was always someone else's problem, someone else's mistake. Even when I was a kid and he'd snap at me over something minor, he'd never apologize. Just act like it hadn't happened and expect everyone else to move on. I'm not coming back, Grandma, I said. Not to live there, not to resume the payments, not to pretend everything is fine. Good, you shouldn't. Her voice was firm. What they did to you is wrong, and they need to sit with that. But Darla, I want you to promise me something. What? Don't let their mistakes make you bitter. Don't let this poison your whole view of family and love. Some people fail us. That doesn't mean everyone will. I thought about Priya offering friendship without expecting anything in return. About Jessica driving 3 hours to help me move out just because I needed someone there. About Karen at work taking extra time to mentor me, even though she had a million other things on her plate. I'll try, I said quietly. We talked for another hour. She told me about my mom going through old photo albums, something I'd later see evidence of at Thanksgiving. She mentioned that my parents had finally sat down with a financial advisor to get their spending under control. She said Allison had been complaining about having to do everything around the house now that I wasn't sending money, apparently oblivious to the irony. She's 24 years old and acts like washing dishes is a personal attack, Grandma said with exasperation. Your mother babied her for too long, and now she's dealing with the consequences. After we hung up, I couldn't fall back asleep. I lay in bed, watching the shadows from the streetlight outside move across my ceiling, thinking about all the versions of my family that had existed over the years. The version where Dad took me to auto shows. The version where Mom braided my hair before school. The version where Allison and I played in the backyard before the gap between us became a chasm. Where had it all gone wrong? Or had it always been like this, and I was just too young to see it clearly? Grandma Joyce called me about 2 weeks after that night, this time at a reasonable hour on a Sunday afternoon when I was doing laundry in my apartment. Darla, sweetheart, it's Grandma. Hi, Grandma. Everything okay? I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen until I'm done. Can you do that? My stomach dropped. Okay. She told me everything about how my parents had refinanced the house 5 years ago to pay off credit card debt, about how they'd been living beyond their means for years, keeping up appearances while drowning in bills, about how Dad had been laid off from his manufacturing job 2 years ago and bounced between temp positions ever since, about how they told Grandma that I was happy to help with expenses, that I'd volunteered the money, that it was my way of staying connected to the family while I was away at school. They never told you any of this? Grandma asked. No, they just said I needed to pay rent. Oh, honey, she sighed heavily. Your mother is my daughter, and I love her. But she's always had this need to look like everything is perfect. The perfect house, the perfect family, the perfect life. And your sister Allison is the baby, and they've always protected her from reality. But you were always independent, always figured things out on your own. So they leaned on you because they knew you could handle it. That's not an excuse, Grandma. No, it's not. It's an explanation. There's a difference. She paused. I'm not calling to ask you to forgive them. I'm calling because I think you should know the truth, and because I want you to know that I'm proud of you. What you accomplished, you did on your own. That degree is yours. That job is yours. They can't take that away from you, no matter how badly they messed up. I cried then. Just sat in my new apartment and cried while my grandmother listened. I didn't even know if they cared that I graduated, I admitted. Of course they care. They're just too proud and too stubborn to admit they handled everything wrong. Your mother drove past Rossi's 3 times the night of your graduation before she finally went inside. Your father hasn't been the same since you left. And Allison Grandma chuckled. Allison quit Walmart 2 weeks ago. Said the assistant manager position was too much stress. Despite everything, I laughed. We talked for another hour. She told me about her garden, about her bridge club, about the new cat she'd adopted from the shelter. Normal grandma things. It felt good. Will you come visit me sometime? She asked before we hung up. Yeah, Grandma, I will. The month mark came and went. I was settling into my apartment, my job, my new routine. I'd bought actual furniture instead of the mismatched secondhand pieces from college. I found a good coffee shop near work that made incredible lattes. I'd started going to the Friday night gatherings with my coworkers regularly, and Priya and I had gone to a movie one weekend, just the two of us. Life was moving forward inch by inch. But I still felt that weight from the empty auditorium during my graduation. Still flinched every time I saw families together in public laughing and taking photos and being present for each other in ways mine never had been for me. Marcus noticed during a team lunch in the cafeteria. We were eating and talking about an upcoming project deadline when I just zoned out staring at a family a few tables over. A dad was showing his daughter something on his phone, both of them laughing. The mom was stealing fries off her son's plate. Normal family stuff, unremarkable to everyone except me. "You miss your family?" Marcus asked quietly, following my gaze. "I don't know," I admitted. "I miss the idea of them. Maybe the version I thought I had." He nodded slowly. "I get that. My dad and I didn't speak for 3 years after I came out. He couldn't handle having a gay son. Thought I was choosing to embarrass him." He took a bite of his sandwich. Eventually he came around. "Sort of. We're not close, but we're civil. Sometimes that's the best you can do." "How did you deal with it?" I asked. "The 3 years of not talking." "Build my own family," he said simply. "Friends, my partner, people who actually gave a damn about me for who I was." He shrugged. "Blood doesn't mean much if the people who share it treat you like garbage. Found family is a real thing." The conversation stayed with me. That night, I called Jessica and talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. She told me about the guy she'd started dating a teacher at the school where she'd gotten a job. I told her about my coworkers and how Ann Arbor felt different now than when we'd been students there, more relaxed somehow. "I'm proud of you," Jessica said before we hung up. "For setting boundaries, for not letting them guilt you into going back. I know it's hard." "It is hard," I agreed, "but staying would have been harder." The first month in Dearborn was lonely, yes, but it was also the first time in 4 years I'd felt like I could breathe without the weight of their expectations and demands crushing my chest. My coworkers were friendly. Slowly I started to feel like maybe I could build something real here, something that was mine. Then 6 weeks after I'd moved out, my grandmother called. "Darla, sweetheart, it's Grandma Joyce." I almost didn't answer, but Grandma had always been different from my parents. She'd sent me $20 every birthday without fail. She'd come to my high school graduation even though it was raining. She'd never treated me like I was less important than Allison. "Hi, Grandma. I need to tell you something and I need you to just listen until I'm done. Can you do that?" "Okay." She told me everything again, this time filling in even more details about how my parents had refinanced the house 5 years ago to pay off credit card debt, about how they'd been living beyond their means for years, keeping up appearances while drowning in bills, about how Dad had been laid off from his manufacturing job 2 years ago and bounced between temp positions ever since, about how they told Grandma that I was happy to help with expenses, that I'd volunteered the money, that it was my way of staying connected to the family while I was away at school. "They never told you any of this?" Grandma asked. "No, they just said I needed to pay rent." "Oh, honey," she sighed heavily. "Your mother is my daughter, and I love her. But she's always had this need to look like everything is perfect. The perfect house, the perfect family, the perfect life. And your sister Allison is the baby, and they've always protected her from reality. But you were always independent, always figured things out on your own. So they leaned on you because they knew you could handle it." "That's not an excuse, Grandma." "No, it's not. It's an explanation. There's a difference." She paused. "I'm not calling to ask you to forgive them. I'm calling because I think you should know the truth. And because I want you to know that I'm proud of you. What you accomplished, you did on your own. That degree is yours. That job is yours. They can't take that away from you, no matter how badly they messed up." I cried then. Just sat in my new apartment and cried while my grandmother listened. "I didn't even know if they cared that I graduated," I admitted. "Of course they care. They're just too proud and too stubborn to admit they handled everything wrong. Your mother drove past Rossi's 3 times the night of your graduation, before she finally went inside. Your father hasn't been the same since you left." And Allison Grandma chuckled. "Allison quit Walmart 2 weeks ago. Said the assistant manager position was too much stress." Despite everything, I laughed. We talked for another hour. She told me about her garden, about her bridge club, about the new cat she'd adopted from the shelter. Normal grandma things. It felt good. "Will you come visit me sometime?" she asked before we hung up. "Yeah, Grandma, I will." 3 months went by. I focused on work where I was thriving. My supervisor had already mentioned possible project leadership opportunities. I made friends with some people from my apartment building. I started rock climbing at a local gym. Life moved forward. Then Thanksgiving approached. Jessica invited me to spend it with her family in Ohio. I was planning to accept when another call came through. My mom's number. I'd unblocked it weeks ago, but she hadn't tried to contact me. Neither had Dad or Allison. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Hello? Darla, it's Mom." Her voice was soft, tentative. "I know I don't have the right to ask, but I'm asking anyway. Will you come home for Thanksgiving?" Why, I asked. "Because you're my daughter. Because I miss you. Because I'm sorry." I sat down on my couch. You're sorry. I'm so sorry, baby. Your dad and I, we handled everything wrong. We took advantage of you. We took you for granted, and we missed your graduation because we're selfish people who couldn't admit we were struggling. So we made everything about your sister instead. She took a shaky breath. I've been in therapy. Did Grandma tell you that? No. I started going about a month ago. My therapist asked me to describe my daughters. I talked about Allison for 5 minutes, how she needs guidance, how she's still finding herself, how we need to support her. Then she asked about you. Mom's voice broke. I couldn't think of anything to say except that you were fine. You were always fine. You didn't need us. I did need you, I whispered. I needed you to show up. I know. We sat in silence for a moment. Allison moved out last week, Mom continued. She's living with her boyfriend in Grand Rapids. The house feels empty. Your father is talking about selling it, getting something smaller we can actually afford. We're not asking you for money, Darla. We're not asking you to fix us. I'm just asking if you'll come eat turkey with us and maybe possibly let us start over. I thought about all the ways they'd hurt me, all the times I'd come second or third or not at all, the 4 years of payments, the missed graduation, the Instagram post that shattered something inside me. But I also thought about Grandma Joyce saying there was an explanation, not an excuse. I thought about my mom driving past Rossi's 3 times before going inside, which meant some part of her knew what she was doing was wrong. I thought about spending Thanksgiving alone in my apartment, or as Jessica's family's charity case again, and how neither of those options would help me move forward. I'll come, I said finally, but I'm not staying at the house. I'll get a hotel room. And if anyone mentions money or makes excuses or tries to act like everything is magically okay, now I'm leaving. Deal, Mom said. Thank you, Darla. Thank you so much. Thanksgiving was awkward as hell. Dad apologized stiffly, clearly uncomfortable with the whole emotional conversation thing. Allison wasn't there, which made everything easier. Grandma Joyce sat next to me and kept patting my hand. We ate turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie, and nobody pretended everything was perfect. Mom showed me the photo albums she'd been going through in therapy. Pictures of me at every age, science fair projects, soccer games, the robotics competition, where my team took second place in the state. I was proud of you, she said, pointing to a photo of me holding a trophy in 8th grade. I am proud of you. I just got so caught up in my own stuff that I forgot to show it. It wasn't a magic fix. It didn't erase the hurt or make the last 4 years okay, but it was something. A starting point, maybe. I went back to Dearborn that weekend and returned to my life. Mom and I started texting occasionally. Nothing heavy, just updates. She sent me photos of the garden. I sent her pictures of projects I was working on. Dad called once to ask about winterizing my car, which was his version of an olive branch. Allison and I haven't really talked. Maybe someday we will. Maybe we won't. Some relationships break and stay broken, and that's okay. But here's what I learned from the whole disaster. Sometimes the people who should love you the most are too busy managing their own problems to see yours. Sometimes you have to be the one who walks away first. Sometimes family is a choice you make, rather than an obligation you're born into. My parents failed me in a lot of ways. They took advantage of my responsibility, my independence, my willingness to help. They chose the easier daughter over the harder relationship. They missed one of the most important days of my life, because admitting their financial problems was more embarrassing than supporting their kid. But I didn't fail myself. I got my degree. I got my dream job. I built a life I'm proud of, with or without their approval. And that matters more than 94 missed calls ever could. The rent money, I never sent another payment. Last I heard from Grandma, they sold the house and moved into a smaller place they could afford without needing their daughter to cover their mortgage. Allison pays them $400 a month now, apparently, though she complains about it constantly on social media. I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. I got promoted to project engineer last month. I'm dating someone I met through work who thinks it's impressive that I graduated summa cum laude and doesn't understand why anyone wouldn't show up for that. I'm saving money and paying off my student loans ahead of schedule. And sometimes when I'm having a hard day, I look at my diploma hanging on my apartment wall and remember that I earned that myself. I walked across that stage alone in the audience section, or not, and I became the person I wanted to be despite everything. That's worth more than any family dinner at Rossi's. That's worth missed calls, burned bridges, and starting over. That's worth everything.